is Apple going to continue growing as a company, or are there best days behind them? So Apple just released their new lineup of products. So they have four new phones, and they have the new AirPods Pro, and they also have new Apple Watches. So now they're releasing this iPhone 17 lineup. And to be honest with you, there isn't much change compared to the previous year. Most of the time these years, it's just, an updated camera. The processor has been updated a little bit, so the phone's a little bit faster compared to the year before, so on and so forth. So recently, a lot of people have been saying that, Apple's lost its magic. They aren't the company that they used to be during the years of Steve Jobs. When they released a new product, everybody would be wowed and say, wow, this is magical, and be rushing to the stores to buy whatever it is that Apple is selling. So when Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, Tim Cook took over. And Tim Cook has done an amazing job with the company. As of me making this video right now, Apple is worth about 3.5 trillion US dollars. So they're one of the biggest companies in the world, and they have more cash on hand than they could probably spend over the next few years. So why am I saying, are they on the decline? So I have a few reasons why. So first things first, I would say that Apple is a company that's never been first to release a product to the marketplace. So this goes back from the time of Steve Jobs. They were never the first company to make a computer with their Macintosh. They were never the first company to make an MP3 player with their iPod. They were never the first company to make a phone with their iPhone. They're never the first company to make, wireless earbuds with their AirPods Pro. They're never the first to make an iPad. There were many other companies or competitors that released tablets before Apple came into the picture. And this is kind of Apple's playbook. They're never first to market. They see how everyone is, making their products first, and then they have their own Apple way of doing it. Then they release it to the public. Now, this strategy has worked for them quite effectively over the last 15-20 years, but recently we have this new AI thing that's happening. We have foldables that are coming out, and Apple doesn't really have a presence in either. So let's start first with the AI. So they have Apple Intelligence, but Apple Intelligence isn't really anything right now. Yes, you can create some Genmojis, or you can do a couple AI things here and there, but generally speaking, compared to the competitors, what Apple's offering with Apple Intelligence is not great. So their competitors being OpenAI with ChatGPT, Google with Gemini. In China, they have DeepSeek, and Twitter or X has Grok, and there's so many more competitors in the AI space. Meta also has their own AI that's integrated into WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. So Apple's version, what they're calling Apple Intelligence, isn't as good as their competitors. And you can tell that this is the case because Apple actually ends up giving instructions to ChatGPT that it cannot process itself on the iPhones. So if you ask your iPhone to do something that it doesn't understand how to do, ChatGPT is going to do it. And that just goes to show you that Apple's AI is not that great. And so when investors and others hear about, the state of Apple's AI, they're not very happy with it, and they're not impressed. Apple's actually pulled back on commercials that were showing certain AI features that they promised would come to the public, but they haven't come out yet. And so a lot of people are claiming false advertising, and, internally, there's also been some things that Apple have been having to deal with because, it hasn't been so rosy in terms of the rollout of their AI features. And with this recent announcement of the iPhone 17 lineup, there's still no updates to Apple Intelligence. They didn't mention anything new, and I'm sure they might have something up their sleeve before the end of the year to announce with regards to Apple Intelligence. But it's crazy times. It's absolutely crazy that they haven't really made any ground since, over the last couple of years, since, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT. So that's Apple from the AI perspective. And so also they're not really taking risks, like I mentioned, foldables. So Samsung, Google, and many other companies, Huawei, they're all releasing foldable phones. There are premium phones. They're quite expensive. There's no foldable that you can get on the market that's probably less than $1,000. They're all more than $1,000 each. And so Apple is yet to come up with their own. I know that the foldables aren't perfect. Some of them are a little bit more fragile than others. Some of them, the screen isn't as good, so the technology isn't perfect. Maybe Apple's taking their sweet time to come out with their own version of a foldable because they want the technology to get a little bit better before they release it to the public. But this could be a cash cow for Apple. And there are rumors that in 2026, Apple's going to come out with its own foldable technology. And then this is what is going to, maybe set them apart in the smartphone space. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what that product looks like. They did come out with their own version of AI AR goggles, so the Apple Vision Pro headset, which I'm sure you've seen already. But the problem with that product is that it was way too expensive. There's plenty of AR and VR goggles in the market that cost fractions of what Apple is selling theirs for. So Oculus is one of the most popular ones in the marketplace right now, and they sell for less than $1,000 compared to what Apple is selling. And I understand there are more premium options, but nothing in the range of 3,500 USD. So as far as I'm aware, I'm in Canada and I have not seen any Apple Vision Pro headsets around me. I don't know anybody that's bought one, but I do know plenty of people that are in the Apple ecosystem. They have iPhones, they have MacBooks, they have AirPods Pro, but they're just not gonna fork out 3,500 USD to buy that headset. And it's a first gen product, right? Maybe in the future Apple will come out with something that is a little bit better, and at a cheaper price, or maybe not better per se, but has less functionality, but is more affordable to the marketplace. Maybe that time will come next year. I'm not sure, or maybe by the end of the year, but it just goes to show that the Apple Vision Pro as a product so far has not really been that successful. So what does Apple go from here? Before, in the past, I would say over the last decade or so, the iPhone has been the cash cow for Apple. The iPhone has been the one product. There was one point in time where more than 60% of the revenue that Apple was receiving was just coming straight from iPhone sales. So they realized that, long term, this is not sustainable, because if the iPhone fails or if people stop buying the iPhone, imagine losing all that revenue in your company. So Tim Cook has done a good job in terms of diversifying his revenue that Apple receives. So recently, over the last few years, they've been releasing services. So there's Apple TV, there is Apple Care for if your goods get damaged. They have Apple Music, so if you want to stream music, and so on and so forth. There's so many Apple services out there that Apple keeps, getting themselves into, because they realize that this is revenue that they can just continue to get on a monthly basis, right? Subscriptions are the new thing. Everybody's, got a subscription to something, subscribe to Spotify or Amazon Prime or whatever it may be. So Apple's also trying to stick their foot in the sand and make their territory when it comes to subscriptions. So they are making, good money doing that. But in terms of the future of Apple, I don't really see how they're going to compete in terms of the Android products, the Android competitors. I'm a Android person myself, just to be honest with you. I don't use Apple products. I used to own iPods, and early in the day, I remember when I was young, I wanted an iPhone, and I see what it is that they're releasing, and they are very good with their sales and marketing. They're very good at persuading people about how amazing their products are. But at the end of the day, like, if you're stuck in the Apple ecosystem, I understand why you want to keep buying their products, and I understand why you think they're the best thing out there. But in my opinion, Android is just way better. Samsung or Google products that are being released, more flexible, more options, and just a better operating system compared to what Apple has to offer. So I'm an Android boy. I don't think I'd ever switch to Apple. And I'm not making this video just to hate on Apple because I'm an Android guy, but I just don't really see how Apple, if they're going to continue the same way, how they're going to continue to stay competitive in this marketplace. So please let me know what you think. Am I talking a lot of nonsense? Do you believe that Apple Intelligence is extremely overrated? And do you think Apple's days are numbered in the near future? Let me know what you think about the new iPhone lineup. And yeah, just your thoughts on Apple in general in the comment section below. My name is Asher, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.